Hi, my name is Robert. Please read the comments in the About section of this video. It has valuable information and updates. My YouTube channel has a disclaimer video that I encourage you to watch. And please like, share, and subscribe. I hope you found what you're looking for. Thank you very much for watching. In this video, I want to share with you what I would do if I was faced with having to drive my vehicle in, let's say, flooded area, a flooded street, waters higher than I could see the road, and or what I would do if I had to deal with my car if it was water. Let's get started. Just for safety purposes, I do not think that I would even touch my car if there was waters ankle high or deeper where I could not see the end of the trail. The reason I say that is, if there is a live power wire in the water that I'm standing in and I touch the metal surface of my car, I may get electrocuted. So, at least what you might consider doing, putting rubber gloves on, pulling the handle open, and then sitting down in the car without touching any of the car, and then pivoting yourself into the car so that your feet is out of the water when you get in and touch something. We all know that our vehicles are used outdoors. They're used in rain. We drive them around in rain. They travel in wet weather, and occasionally we have to drive through a puddle or something like that. I am in no means, by no way, no how, encouraging you to drive a flooded street or flooded waters. I'm just letting you know what I would do in the event that if my car was submerged in water, what I would do, or if I was driving in an area that had some water that was a little high. This is the things I think it'd be good for you to know. One thing that you should know is that most of the electrical connectors in a vehicle are waterproofed. Of course, the battery's not. That's fully exposed. But if you look at this mass airflow sensor and you look down in there, there should be a rubber grommet inside there that helps seal this connection off. It looks as if somebody has removed this from this connection. So I need to find one of those, get that back in there. Also, a lot of connections are made with what they call dielectric grease to help waterproof the connection and prevent it from corroding. If I look down here on my light connection, look down in the connector, you'll see that white seal in there. That should be on every electrical connector on your modern day cars. In your cars that are manufactured nowadays, many of those connections have softer rubber gaskets with multiple layers of a water resistant plug, which is really good. So do be aware that your car has some level of water protection on most, if not all, the electrical connectors. Another thing that you should know is that the worst thing that can happen is for water to get into the intake system of the car and be sucked into or leak into the intake manifold and then into the cylinder area. This car, this 95 Volvo, has an air intake scoop that is basically right here. So as long as this car is driven with the water level below the air intake system, this car will probably be okay, which in my opinion is this bumper line. Other vehicles will have other heights of a water level it could withstand, but as long as this car is driven in waters below this bumper line, it will probably be okay. I say that because this air is designed to come in here, come out of this scoop here, in through a scoop that goes to the bottom of the air box. So when this air tube is connected here, which is not waterproof but a little water resistance, Air will come in here, flow into the air box, flow through this air tube, down into the turbo, up through the turbo piping, and into the throttle body. You do not want water going into the throttle body. On turbo cars, they have this complicated piping and things. On a naturally aspirated car, the air comes from the air box directly into the intake manifold, and there's less of a risk of water intrusion. So these tubes, intake tube, air box, you should be okay for the car to run. All that to say this: if you find yourself driving along and you come to a spot in the road that you believe has very shallow water, you can probably slowly, safely drive through that water, as long as that water doesn't get higher than this bumper and trim line. So you can roll down the window, slowly move into that high water area, and as long as you know that that water doesn't get above that trim, either by looking out of the window or having someone walk in front of the vehicle, this vehicle will probably ride through shallow waters fine. No problem at all. Come out, drive away, no problem. Now, it's never good for your water level to be above your exhaust pipe. That is why if you see vehicles that was designed to ride in high waters or flooded areas, they actually have an exhaust pipe that is extended above the window or very high compared to your normal exhaust pipes. Reason being, it is possible for water to get sucked into the exhaust pipe and into the engine, and that is not what you want to happen, especially if that engine is running. I mentioned that most of your electrical connections are water resistant, and I want you to know that your engine, it has some water resistance to it, but it's not fully waterproof. Now, the worst thing that can happen to your car in the event that the engine gets flooded with water is that if water gets down into the cylinders, that would happen by it getting either vacuumed up into the exhaust area, which is very rare and difficult to happen. More likely, if water is ingested into your intake system, gets past your air filter and goes into your throttle body and into your intake valves of your engine and seeps into the cylinders. If your car is running and you're driving in high waters or flooded area, and somehow water gets past your throttle body and goes into the intake valve system of your engine and gets into the cylinders area, your cylinders, which compress air, cannot compress water. If that happens and your car stalls and dies, do not try to restart it. If your engine's running and water gets into the cylinders and the piston comes up to compress the air that's supposed to be there and it is met with water, it can actually damage the internals of the engine, specifically bend a rod, because the force of the engine is trying to rotate past that, and if you have water in there, it can destroy the engine, bust a piston, bend a rod, crack a block. All those kind of things can happen if water gets inside the piston cylinder area of your car. Now to what I think is the important part. Say for instance your car is parked in the area that all of a sudden gets flooded. The water is bumper high, hood high, roof high, whatever. This car is submerged in water. Rolled in the lake, you pulled it out of the lake. This is what I would do to try to make sure that I didn't destroy the car. Number one, open the hood, the trunk, the doors, all that stuff. Let all of that water drain out as best you can. Don't try to start the car with a bunch of puddles of water in or about the engine bay, especially laying in the floorboard, stuff like that. You're just increasing the chance of some water getting sucked into somewhere and destroying components of the car. What I would actually do is disconnect the battery and remove the battery from the vehicle until the car dries out, whether that takes a day or two. The next thing you want to do, or that I would do, is make sure that there's no water in the cylinders of the car. Right now, this car is sitting, it hasn't been started, it's not running. Water could have somehow gotten past the throttle body or something and has made its way into the cylinders. So what I want to do is make sure there's no water there. After the car's dried out as best as I see it possibly can, I'm going to remove the spark plug coils or wires. I'm going to remove the spark plugs so that those cylinder areas are not sealed off with the spark plugs. Then I'm going to connect the battery, and then I'm going to crank the car over either with a remote starter or with the key. When I hit that key, if there's any water that was inside the cylinder area of that engine, is going to be ejected out through the spark plug holes. Now, if there's water in there and the spark plugs are in, and you try to start that car, the engine is probably not going to start. That's a condition that they call hydrolock. You want to prevent that from happening, because if the starter is strong enough and it's hit with enough force with the electrical system trying to start the car, it can damage the inside of the engine because it's hydrolock. So remove the spark plugs, hit the starter, crank the engine over, make sure all water is ejected out of there. You can deactivate the fuel system before you do that, just to be on the safe side. You're not pumping fuel in there, but you do want to make sure that you eject the water out of the cylinders before you try to start that car and drive it. So, to recap, safety reasons, you never want to touch your car if you're standing in water and you don't know if there's any power lines in the water. You don't want to get electrocuted. Number two, most of your electrical connectors are waterproof, but you want to make sure all water is drained off in them before you try to start the car. Number three, if you think the car was submerged above the intake system line on this car, the top of this bumper or higher, you want to remove all the spark plugs before you crank the car to allow any water to be ejected from the cylinder area, so the car doesn't experience hydrolock and damage the internals of the engine. And that, last but not least, you want to make sure that you let the car drain off all waters before you try to start it, because you don't want any poor or bad electrical connectors to be submerged with water when you try to start the car. I hope this information helps. Make a comment below, add information that's valuable, or ask a question. Maybe someone more educated on the matter or an expert on the matter will reply to it. Thanks for watching. If you feel that this information was useful, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can subscribe to my channel so that you will get notifications of future videos that I post. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you need to contact me directly, please visit my website. And if you have any questions, leave them below, and someone or myself will reply to them. Again, thank you very much for watching.